Hello, and welcome back. Today we're gonna talk about something different. No, I'm not giving Gumi tips today. We're gonna dive into the lore of Smash Legends. Not just the surface, but we're gonna go deep, real deep into all of the unanswered questions surrounding the library war, the Smash Legends tournament, and every faction involved. Keep in mind before we start that not everything I tell you in this video is official, most of which are theory that are well crafted and based on available information online. And this basically is made for people like you and myself who are curious to know and learn about the lore of the game more than what we are shown. If you're a new player, then I strongly suggest you go check out the original lore and all the surface information about the game first. You can check it on the official website. Go to the check out all the Smash Toon, comment on there to get a general understanding of what we are talking about today. So if you want to know about the full theory behind the Smash Legends lore, make sure you watch this into the end because I will try to cover everything in one single video. For beginners, we must first know what the library war is. So it's already mentioned that the library war is like this place that all the characters from different story come to rest, hang out. It's like a resting place before they continue their journey on their story. The place that all these characters is living in the library world is called the Synapse City. It also described as the center of this universe. So it's basically like the very balance point of the world. So imagine Synapse City. It's like a giant fortress with multiple layers in the center of this universe, and surrounding it is infinite different story island. So that's basically how the world is structured in the Smash Legends lore. But to understand more how this world work, we need to focus on how the library world work. You see, the name library world isn't just some random name they come up with. It does act like a library. It contains pages of different story that existed, and in each story there's different character, hero, villains, even monster, and these being called legends. Now you might wonder, how does the legends in different variation works? Let me tell you, it's quite different from the, let's say, multiverse theory that you already familiar with in like different show, right? Character can have different variation based on the choice they make in different universe. But in the library world, it does not work like that. As you already know, like these characters, they are from different story, from different tales that being told. Some are very old, some are new, but they have one thing in common. They are not passive story. They are actively go out and seek for the new version of the story itself. So let's say you heard like a story from someone, and then when the story is passed on to you, even if it's the same exact story, when you tell it to someone else, you might change some small details you doesn't even know about. These change make different variation of the story, and of course it's make different variation of the character in that story. Not to mention that even if you tell the exact same story of the original story, the person who heard it from you might have a different thought about the story. In their mind, they have a different visual of the character in that story. Like if you say a dragon, I might think of a different dragon design rather than what you are thinking in your mind. So that create different variation of characters and story within this library world. Every time a story is told and passed on to someone else, it become a different version. It become a unique version to that one person believe. Even for people who doesn't know about the story, but they heard of the character somewhere, it will still generate or like create that version of that character in this world. And the character doesn't just disappear, not until the person who created them technically forget about them. So as long as they all remember, that version of that character specifically will always exist in this world as an individual characters. That's the basic concept. So that's why there can be infinite version of a story and version of a characters, right? So now you know how this whole concept of legends and the library world works. Now is the interesting part. Now we talk about you, the player. If you have read the original lore of Smash Legend, the story takes place somewhere before the player actually quote unquote show up in the library world. But technically we don't show up, we just appear or like exist in this dimension. And the exact moment when that happened is when there's start to appear some glitch or like rumble in the library world with unstable abnormalities happening everywhere, and people going around spreading rumors that Umbra might be the one behind it all. Now what if I tell you it's not Umbra who caused these chaos events, it's actually us, the player? To understand what is happening, so when a player joins the Smash system, they're not just controlling a legend, they are linking with them. So linking is when you as a player fight as one with a legend of your choice. That is called linking. Linking can be very simple things like putting an emote in, pressing a button and the legend responds to your control. That's linking on a basic level. Now on another level of linking, on a much higher level of linking, there's also deeper connection. It's called deep linking. It's basically when a player dedication and connection to a legend goes beyond the normal linking. They start to understand the characters more. They're trying to sing with the characters more. They got more mastery on the characters, and it just feels so perfectly aligned whenever they play that characters. This caused the barrier between the library world and our real world to blur. What this means is that the legend itself, of course, will become faster, sharper, feel more alive with the connection and with the player skill that keep growing. Also, the player will experience change, like they will start developing a special characteristic that present the player group of that legend. Of course, this doesn't happen that commonly. There's only a handful of players that achieve deep link. However, even with such a small group, this is actually the biggest threat to the library world itself, because this blurred the barrier between the real world and the library world, causing chaos, glitches, and unpredicted events. And when the legends got to the state of completely connect to the player, call this as a meta legend. A meta legend is defined as a legend who has evolved through the players, rewriting their own abilities within the library world. Alright, so now you know about the library world, what legends, how they exist, what is linking, and what's the connection between a player and a legend. So this led us to the next thing that we will talk about. How does this affect different factions within the library world? When you mention faction of this word, you have to think of course, obviously, well-known faction like the Sage Council, Umbra, or 70s. And yes, we're gonna talk about all of these big faction in this world, starting with the Sage Council. So everybody knows and look up to them as these beings in this world that like guardians of orders and harmony, and they always seek orders, they always seek balance, they don't want anything outplaced, they want every story to follow and ends how they're supposed to be. Now that leads us to a big question: how do the Sage Council react to this so-called linking system between player and legends? Well, of course they know about this. Whenever there's a sudden change in the balance of the library world, the Sage Council should be the first one to acknowledge these activities. And no, the Sage Council doesn't like linking because it goes against what they want to do. It goes against their goal, their purpose of maintaining the world in a balanced state. And that is why the Sage Council created the Smash Legends tournament. On the surface, we know that this tournament is to gather all legends into one big battle royal to see who's the last one standing, and that last legend will be able to receive an item that could change reality itself, that they can use to rewrite their own fate and story. So what is the truth behind the Smash tournament? If you think about it, the Sage console only seek balance and order. So why would they go out of their way and promote something that can alternate reality? It just makes no sense. The whole Smash tournament is just a well-planned scheme organized by the Sage console to control, trap, and loop reality. We all know that, except from the Sage console, every other legends in the library world doesn't seem to have memories of their past self. You can see an example of this through Master Cat's story, where he remembers his past life in multiple other stories, because Sage are meant to guide a story to its correct endings, and they live through the story countless of time without being reset. Similar to Aoi, where she go through her story over and over again, she remember everything, but her friends Kuranai does not have that same abilities. And it is assumed that every Sage in the Sage console will have the similar abilities. So if in any situation the library will reset itself to maintain balance, of course every other legend will not remember any details about that on-call reset except from the Sage console and its members. The whole Smash tournament supposedly is to find out who this meta legend is, basically for the Sage console to filter out these abnormalities, legends who have linked with their player and become meta legend more easy, so that they can control the damage by resetting or purging the library world and erasing all of the data related to those meta legends. Whenever this happens, we call it a cycle. A cycle happens when somebody wins the Smash tournament and get their data erased. At the same time, the library will loop itself and reset to the original state. And only the state console members remember about every cycle that have been going on. And in the real world, as player, we can relate this to the competitive game mode, since we have multiple seasons, and every season, no matter which ranking are you, everything will be reset to the start. Everything will go back to zero once the season is over. Even though I did say only the Sage console have the ability to remember their multiple past life or interaction in other story, there's actually another group that share similar ability, and that's Umbra. Umbra is pictured as this evil group of villains. They are like agent of chaos. They seek to destroy or mess with the balance of the library world. But how many of that is actually true, and why they want to also participate in the Smash tourney? And why does the Sage console view them as a threat? Well, obviously because they messing with the world balance. And of course, the Sage console will target anyone that threaten the order of the library world as enemy. There's actually more explanation to what Umbra actually doing. So here's a theory that I'm pretty sure you never heard of. Witchwind might be one of an ex-core member of a Sage console, similar to Master Cat or Ravi and Nui Mother. Remember when I say only the Sage console members have the ability to access to their past memories? Witchwind have that. If you relate back to Witchwind on Smash Toon, she have a dimension that she can use to view not only her past story but other legend past story, every version of their story with her mirrors. This is not just a spell, it's not any normal spell. As a normal legend, she shouldn't have the ability to access to different or other variants dimension of herself, not to mention of every other legends out there, but apparently she can. And it seemed to be her own ability, not contribute to any of other Umbra achievement or products. It's strongly believed that Witchwind was once part of the Sage console. This is also a good reason to explain why the Sage console actually trying to hunt Umbra down as a threat to the library world, but hesitate to take them down because of which win rankings and the amount of inside information she know about the Sage console. However, she doesn't use it like the Sage trying to keep balance and order. She uses it to find the characters who are not satisfied with the fate that plays on them. She actively searched for these legends and pulled them out of their story to join Umbra. So although it might seem like something bad because it goes against the rules of this world, if you think about it, it's not morally wrong. She's not tricking them, she's not giving them a false hope. She truly wants to set them free from the unfortunate ending that they are heading to. Another interesting things that I think you might want to know is that Witchwind also know about the linking system and the reason why the library world is glitching because of the player and the legend connection. This is because she was one that say she still have all of these ability of a sage, including access to her past memories, access to all the characters' story, and sense of abnormally activity within the library world. She searched for them. She searched for these legends with deep link with the player and potentially already become a meta legend. Why? Because these so-called meta legends are the key to reach Umbra goal, to change the fate of characters who are destined to have a bad endings. And because deep link make the characters or legend change so much, it's actually rewrite their own story in a way to fit the player that played them. We will touch more on this part later on when I explain to you about the Smash Arena. Another legends I want to highlight on is Wolfgang. Now we all know that Wolfgang has similar ability to access his past memory as we have seen in his story with Master Cat, and we know that he willingly joined Umbra without actively being recruited. Now the story here might have been that he was once also a sage of the Sage console, maybe not as high ranking as Witchwind, but we can tell that as soon as Witchwind chose to turn her back on the Sage, Wolfgang willingly to follow her. Knowing that the Sage console will try to erase the data of these meta legends and the deep link between the player and the legends, Witchwind and Umbra also take part in this tourney to make sure the Sage console doesn't get what they want. They want to make sure that these meta legends with deep link with their player make it through the end, because that's the key to change the balance of the library world. Like, they might not really know what's gonna happen if the order of the library will actually get shifted. Even the Sage console doesn't know what happened. Like, they just strongly believe that they have to maintain this balanced state. Nobody knows what will happen if that state is broken. But Umbra is willing to bet on it to change the unfortunate fate of all of these legends that want a happier ending. Umbra doesn't really do anything that terrible that label them as these super villain of the library world. Except from the fact that they might experiment on some legends and even kidnap members of the Sage console. But this can also be explained that they're trying to figure out the secret of the cycle and trying to recover the memory of these characters that lost after the library world reset each time. Lastly, we have 70 Corporation, the biggest tech organization in the library world. And of course, they seek evolution, they seek change, they seek anything that will make the library world a better version of itself. Even though we know that 70 Corp support the organizing process of the Smash tourney for the Sage console, their goal is actually not aligned with the Sage console in any way. And even though they goes up against Umbra, there's also a good explanation for that. One of the interesting thing I want to touch on is Gumi. No, not because I'm the Gumi guy, but because Gumi actually play a very important role in the explanation of the lore. Now, if you go back to Gumi's Smash Toon story, you will remember that she was imprisoned in one of the most highly secure prison known in the library world for just organizing a small gang that scam people for little money. That alone doesn't make any sense, right? Gumi is a character that fight for freedom. And like I mentioned before, a meta legends evolve from deep linking with their player. That's actually changed how they were written in their story. Now, this change include the playstyle and the personality. And within Gumi's story, other than the fact that she might be put in there because of the Sage Council seeing her as one of the threat that causing unbalance in the library world, you will also notice that in her novel, yes, we have Smash novel, she used to have a more mischievous behavior, plus she used to fight with her claws, fast bees, and using illusion. However, after she was free from prison, she now fights with a magical fan using blue fire as her primary attacks. Her speed is not as fast as how she used to be in her novel description, and her personality become more elegant. These are all hints that Gumi is in fact a meta legend. Now, I want to touch on the other small details in Gumi's story. She did receive that magic fan as her new weapon from a mysterious figure. It's strongly believed that that figure might just be one of Umbra agent. By far, the only two factions in the lore that we know that have the ability to create magical weapon is either Rabbit Company by Alice or Umbra. However, Rabbit Company only two products so far is either Alice's own weapon or Ducky transforming spear. Meanwhile, almost every other magical weapon user or items in the game itself has been coming from Umbra. For example, Ravi left arm, red magical scissors, Cindy shoes, Uchi handcuffs, and Briar pillows. The reason why Umbra do this, they also know the existence of deep linking and they know which legend is a meta legend. So by providing Gumi with this fan, this new weapon, they are actually trying to secure her survivability if the Sage Council ever really want to purge or like execute her before the actual loop happens, the actual cycle happens. On the other hand, we also know that 7D actually trying to get her out of jail with the reason stating that they want to recruit her to help defeat Umbra. Even if you don't know about all the theory I've told you so far, you would definitely think that this is weird. Like why? Why would one of the biggest tech company search for just a random legends that used to be a gang leader for scamming people? Like why is Gumi so important that 7D himself has to come out and like use his identities as a guarantee to free her and recruit her? Now, of course, I strongly believe that the whole help on defeating Umbra thing is just a lie. It's just a well-crafted line, a make-up reason that 7D make to bypass this process and not to make the Sage Council suspicious about this action. 7D Corporation only aim for improving evolution and making library world a more better version of itself, though they don't have as much information as of course the Sage Council and Umbra. But keep in mind that Octavia is currently staying and working in 7D Corporation, and she herself is also a sage. She have the ability to access past memory, to detect and sense abnormalities, and in a way I do believe that she also know what the Sage Council is up to, what's their next move it. So between the 7D Corporation and Sage Council, they do share some information. 7D was able to figure that Gumi is some kind of a threat that Sage Console keep an eye on, and they want to make sure that legend with this deep link system doesn't get erased, doesn't get purged by the Sage Console. They want to study them. They want to learn more about this linking, about the player, and about these meta legends evolution. In short, right, both Umbra and 70 Corporation is trying to do the same thing in this situation. They both trying to make sure that Gumi doesn't get suddenly wiped out by the Sage Console. Although their goal is completely not the same. One is to use her as a tool for research. The other one see her as the key to save others. Okay, so let's talk about the Smash Arena system. Smash Arena is an arena located in the highest level of Sinop City. It has always been maintained by the Sage Console and is used to host the Smash Legend tourney. Now, the special things about this arena is that it's powered by the Codex, and the Codex record everything to the library world. So the library world holds all the information of story and different variants of legends characters. Meanwhile, the Codex record all of the data related to these legends when they are fighting for the tournament. The arena is not capable of preventing any abnormality acts. They don't have the ability to change or stop linking or deep linking. They just record everything. So the system record every change that caused to a legend by linking to a player, and it remember it. It doesn't just record things to replay them like a replay system. It remember these changes and then adapt these changes to the legend itself. And basically that is how the characters or the legends manage to rewrite their own abilities, their own potential with the player helps and with the player linking. And no, the Sage Console doesn't have control over this. The Codex is a system implemented within the library world. Of course, the Sage Console always seek order and balance. They would not dare to like dissect this system to learn about it or trying to like do anything different than it normally does. When you related this Codex system to our real world, it will be all the continuous balance patch that we get every 2 weeks. Now it's every month, but yeah, you get the point, right? So these balance patches making different changes to the already exist ability of the legends to adapt to these player and their link with the legends. The game itself is recognizing the players. So in terms of lore, what this means is that legend who have achieved deep linking with their player will have access to all the memories of battles they have been through with their players, even if the state of the library world is purged or reset. As long as the link is still there, as long as the connection and the bond is still there, the legend will still remember. Their memory will not get wiped away by the Codex. They were able to access to all the matchup knowledge experience that their player have go through with them before, and become basically better than legend without the player linking. FYI, yes, the legend without a player link is the bot. The bots always stay in the default skin because they are the original legend itself without any effect by the player. They also cannot use emote without any input from the player. And although bot legends show improvement over time, they are still considered inferior compared to real player legends. There's actually another character I want to touch on, which is Red. Because other than Gumi, the only characters that showcase one of the biggest sudden change in their personality and fighting style, I guess, is Red. Like, we get a glimpse of Red in the past. In her trailer, we see that she's used to be this super nice little girl with innocent face, and now she's just become like a mischievous, violent brat. If you consider every other legends that have been recruited by Umbra, Red show the most obvious signs of sudden change in behavior and fighting style. These are all proof that Red is also meta legends, and that Umbra is also actively seeking out to recruit these meta legends to find out the key to change fate itself. So that's all I got. So what do you think about this theory of the Smash Legend lore, or about this what if library world scenario? Do you have any other interesting theory about the game lore? about anything related to the game world in general, do let me know in the comment section. And I hope you like the video. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.